Got the rear end all disassembled. I got the frame, the subframe cut off. All the parts are set aside. Now I'm going to have to lift the frame up because I need clearance underneath to make room for the subframe. So I'm going to block it up and kind of jig it up so it's level, square, and everything, and then I can set the frame. I've got dimensions on where it goes up and down, left and right, front and back, so I should be able to replicate that over here. Got the rear cradle tacked up in place just to set everything, make sure the angles are right and it's square and centered and the right distance. So I'm just going to leave that for now. I'm still debating whether to just maybe cut these off, these ears, and then just weld it in permanent with brackets, or make it from scratch. Not sure about that yet. I want to start working on the front end, so I got to finish my putting my tubing bender together, and then build the cradle pieces for the struts to come up from here. So I don't know what they're going to look like, but we'll figure something out. Making pretty good progress. I got the tubing bender put together with the hydraulic cylinder. Made a stand for it quick. I think I need to level it a little bit better, but for right now, for just doing one elbow, it'd be fine. I haven't figured out how I'm going to bend the tubing yet anyway, how I want it to look. And then I got this mocked up with the old Mustang doghouse pieces, and cut out a piece to simulate the strut mount, and then a couple of pieces that I can run down some tubing and so jig it up that way. And then I can remove this, bolt this on the frame, and then build a structure to hold up this. This will be the negative, and then I'll have a piece on the top to simulate this piece, and then that'll have the structure to go back to the main frame. So coming along, a lot of work, but it's getting there. So I got a bend on the 1.5" DOM tubing. That's as tight a bend as I can do. It's not really a 180, it's like maybe 120, something like that. I didn't measure it. It's more than 90, so that ought to work, I think. Took me a couple tries. I had the shoe on backwards, and the shoe is in here, and it's got a curve on one side and straight on the other, and the straight side's got to be out with the straight tubing. Oh well, I'm learning. That's probably I think it's $40 lesson right there. 20 bucks, $18 a foot. So that's okay. So I'm going to use this piece. I'm going to try to do something like this, and then have bends going down to the top of the frame rail in the front and back. So I'm going to make a plate that'll flush mount with the top of this tube, and this is the negative side, so it'll bolt right on top of that. Then I can start forming my hoop off of that. Making some pretty good progress on the strut towers. I got these pieces cut, and they're going to get mounted like that. I only have a 90-degree bender, so I had to make a seam here, and then the other piece will come underneath like this, and then come down to the frame. So getting the hang of the bender. Made a few mistakes, but that was okay. It gave me some pieces I could play with and just test a couple things out. This one's made. I gotta cut the tails off, and then I'll mock them up and form the other down struts. I redid that one upright. I didn't like how it looked kind of bulky. I don't know, I didn't like it. So this I like a lot better. It's a little more swept angle, and it's not intrusive into the engine compartment as much. Yeah, kind of wasted a lot of tubing, but hey, I just keep thinking it's way cheaper than buying a frame from somebody, so I'll learn as I go, and that's the cost of education. Finally figured out how to make this miter joint. They were really not fun. It took me a lot of figuring and head scratching to make those miters, because even with the software I'm not real good at it yet, and I haven't figured out how to use it that well. But that's what I really wanted to have it look like, and pretty happy with it. You know, there's a few extra gaps here and there, but I think the welds are coming out. They'll smooth all the welds out anyway, so that's really what I wanted. So that was, I got to do the other side yet, but at least now I have a system down to make those really weird fish mouth miter joints. The strut towers are welded up mostly. I'm going to finish welding all the way around here on both of them. I welded all the way around the bottom of the riser post. I think I want to put the front suspension on. The rear is tacked in pretty good. I can put the arms on, and I'd like to put the wheels on, get the body on it as a test fit, because I don't, you know, this is a good time to like make a change. If something I made a mistake or screwed something up, I want to know now, not after everything's fully 100% done, because I think I'm still going to put some vertical riser pieces there, and then I'm going to have to build a cross brace to go across the top anyway. But I really want to get the suspension on, get it on the ground, set it at ground level height again, make sure the body still clears, because this is completely different than the factory frame. Make sure all the stuff that I had brilliant ideas, you know, is going to work before you get too far, because it's still, you know, fabrication stage. I can cut stuff up and it's just metal, so it's easy to do it now. So I think that's the plan. This is already loose, and you know, everything's still, nothing moved, so that's good. And then so I'm going to drop that jig out of the way, and then I can put the suspension on. So it's coming out pretty good. Got the frame cut away from the chassis jig and raised up. Now I can remove the I-beams, and I'll set the frame back down on some jack stands, and then I can put the suspension and the wheels on, roll it out, roll the body in, lift that up, roll the chassis under, drop the body down, verify all my mounting points and clearances and calculations and all that nonsense, you know, still works before I get crazy finishing off the frame. So it's worth the extra step to do it all now. So coming out pretty good, I think. Got the front and rear suspensions temporarily bolted on, just to make sure everything still works, lines up correctly. I think I'm going to put the tires on it, the wheels and tires on, and lower it on the ground. And then next step is to roll it outside and bring the body in here, lift it up, and then prep it to, you know, get the body back on the frame. Check clearances, make sure like the steering still lines up properly. I did move the front suspension forward an inch to get more clearance on the engine to the firewall. So I want to make sure I have room for the front, you know, there's no clearance issues on the front tires or anything like that. I think I'm going to be fine, but I really, now's the time to check all that stuff because everything's just kind of tacked in place. I can still move, you know, if I have to move the rear end around, I want to double check the pinion angles, make sure I got that all right. So set the ride height again, make sure that looks good, make sure there's proper tire clearances. So, but I think it's pretty cool. I mean, I got axles on it, and it can take wheels and tires on it now. So I just kind of tacked the shock, assembled the shocks for the rear. Just kind of tacked them in place for now. I use the brackets that they sent, so they don't really fit quite right, but I'll modify them and make them look okay, look good. So, yeah. Next step, put the body on. Well, slight miscalculation. It's a pretty tight fit for those strut towers to fit under the lift, so it's got to be aimed pretty close. Pretty tight to the top, so I might have another inch or two, but it'll go. Got the body back on the frame. Everything lines up pretty good. Got pretty good clearance here at the frame and the body, firewall. Pretty good clearance here at the master cylinder, but I'm not entirely sure if I can get the master cylinder out now with that down tube kind of angled back right there. It's going to be tight, so I'm going to have to try to take that out, make sure that it's accessible. I think it's sitting a little bit high. I mean, that's a little maybe higher than ride height it's supposed to be, so I haven't really adjusted anything, but I mean, it seems to fit pretty good up underneath. I had to move that cross member forward a little bit because it was hitting the tail, this sheet metal cross member here. So I moved the 2x4 up. So I think it's sitting about where it's supposed to be. It might be a little high, but I don't know. We'll see. I'm going to put the motor in and see how that clears. Got the motor put back in the frame and the weight's off of it. So I wanted to see how the headers fit. I don't know about the steering. Might need a U-joint in there. I'll have to see when I get the steering column in there, but that's not a big deal. You know, it's good the frame doesn't move really. Got pretty good clearance on the headers. A lot easier to connect the exhaust than the long tubes that were on it, so. And they needed to be replaced anyway. I had a big hole in it, one of them from hitting the body mount in the accident. So that's another step. I think I'll let it on the ground, check the ride height. I'm trying to verify the rear pinion angle again because I got to make sure that rear frame is set in the right spot. So far so good. Got it sitting on the ground on the suspension. I adjusted the rear coilovers down, so now that's the proper ride height. I got the engine mocked up with everything in the front is actually where it's supposed to be and like mounted correctly. I just have to do a cross member for the transmission. And I remember I had bought a new one to replace the broken one that came with the wrecked car. So I'm like, why not try that? So this actually is going to be not bad. I'll just make a couple of brackets with some bracing, and then that way there you could just drop it right down, and I think that'll work out really slick. I just want to double check my angles of the motor and the pinion. I think the pinion, it's hard to tell, but I don't know, that might need to come down. We'll see. So I'll make some measurements and check with my angle finder, but I think the chassis is pretty much at ride height, pretty much at the correct rake. So I'm pretty happy with it. I think the rear coilovers are going to have to go mount up a little bit because there's not a lot of travel there. So I think I could actually, and that's why I tacked in the brackets. I can just move them up a little bit. And I think the fronts could go up a little bit. So I'm going to double check those too before I confirm any of my angles. Now what I should do is make solid struts for the back, just so it's set and nothing will move. It's a little more difficult with the front. I could probably, you know, make some kind of temporary brace so that as weight changes, the ride height stays the same. So that's coming along. Making pretty good progress now. I got the front ride height set. I got the rear ride height set. I put some temporary struts in, welded in so nothing will move. I set my angles on the transmission engine. Got a cross member fabricated and just tacked up. Want to make sure everything looks good. I'm using the stock cross member from the Mustang. So I had it. It bolts on and it keeps my ground clearance, you know, not too bad. There's nothing really hanging down. A little bit of a bump on the transmission, but I like that. That keeps it up tight. So, and I got I was a little worried the frame was going to be a little bit too much of a rake, but I think it settled down pretty nice. So I'm going to throw the body back on, and now all the major components are solidified. I can just verify, you know, my fenders still fit and my body still fits and all that. Check that booster for clearance. So I think it's come along pretty good. Sitting at ride height now. Suspension points are all locked in position with temporary braces, so that's really where it should sit when it's all done. I kind of like how the lips of the wheels are pretty close, front and rear. Still, you know, plenty of ground clearance, so should be drivable, no issues with speed bumps. Everything's just temporarily just hung on there. Fenders and core support. I think I had to lower the core support because to get the fenders lined up I had to take the bushings out. So my frame, you know, fabrication was a little bit off. But center to center I think is good. One thing I did see, like I mentioned before, yeah, this booster's not coming out. So, not sure what kind of solution I can have for that. It might be just these studs are too long, but, or maybe if I slot the holes and let it slide over, but it's tight. No two ways around it. So that's something to think about. So I think right now I'm just gonna pull the body off, just lift the body up, and then think about what to do about the rear suspension, at least figure out what I want to do. I may not do it with the body in here, it's just kind of takes up too much space, so I might pull that out and then just keep going. Well, that's it for now. I have another project that just rolled in. I'm gonna have to do something on that for a little while, but this will roll. It's mocked up pretty good. Ride height's pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. I think it looks pretty good. I like the stance. So we'll just have to continue when I can get back to it.